Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day one of the 5th annual 2021 Sustainable Development Goals Summit. As everyone makes their way in, I'm just going to make a few introductions and housekeeping notes. My name is Eden, and I'm one of the co-leads of the SDG Summit team, alongside Carolyn, who you will also see moderating our panel discussion later today. You'll also be seeing our colleague Micah on the stage, emceeing the kickoff, as well as a few other colleagues facilitating in the chat. Feel free to engage with us in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from and what you do. You know, if you're a student, if you're in the industry, or if you're just here to really just find out what's going on. And as far for us, our whole team will be streaming in from Calgary, Alberta. And I would also just like to take this moment to mention that today's event is being documented by graphic recorder Sam Hester from the 23rd Story to capture this inspiring conversations we'll be having today. So Sam, if you want to give us a hello in the chat here, that would be lovely. We will be sharing her work at the end of the summit, as well as a networking event if you're attending our in-person events. Okay, and a few housekeeping notes just before we begin. This platform is best used on a laptop or computer with Google Chrome and a stable internet connection. If you have difficulty seeing the speaker's feed, I recommend that you close any other tabs that you have open and try refreshing the browser. Lastly, we welcome you to interact with us and with each other in the chat for an engaging rest of the kickoff. So if you have any questions as they arise or any statements or thoughts, feel free to punch it into the chat. We welcome that for sure. Okay, and with that, I invite you all to close all your tabs so you only have this screen in front of you, and join me in setting the intentions for the day. For this, I will be turning my video off, as well as my colleagues here. All right. All right, for this, I want you to place your feet flat and firmly on the floor. Now ground your body within your chair. Relax your limbs and rest your hands on your body, wherever they may fall. I invite you to close your eyes and just listen to what I say. Feel your body against your chair. Really feel the ground below you, providing support to your body. Lengthen your spine from your tailbone to the nape of your neck, and as your shoulders lift, gently roll them to the back of the room and let them drop comfortably. Now turn to your breath. Imagine an invisible string attached to the top of your head, lifting you to the sky. Feel the in and out as breath enters and leaves your body. Now just take a moment to feel your breath, in and out. I invite you to let each breath root your body deeper and deeper in the ground. For every inhale and exhale, create roots into the ground. With every breath, deepening those roots deep into the earth. This land is supporting you, lifting you up. This land that lifts you up has been lifting Indigenous peoples up since time immemorial. If you are now in what is currently called Canada, you too are situated in land that has been supporting Indigenous peoples for millennia and will continue into the future. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land. As we gather here today in the spirit of respect, reconciliation, and reciprocity, we honor and acknowledge the traditional territories of the Treaty 7 people of Southern Alberta. In particular, the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising of the Sdga, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Stoney Nakoda Nations, Tsuut'ina First Nation, and Métis Nations of Alberta Region 3. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connections and contributions in shaping and strengthening this community in particular, and this province and country as a whole. As settlers, this recognition of the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous peoples must be clearly connected to our commitment to make the promise and challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our communities. I encourage all of you to note the Indigenous territory you are on. If you do not know, for now make a note to find out. The land we are all on is land on which Indigenous peoples have convened and learned together, and continue to do so just as we are today. If you're not an Indigenous person, then I invite you to acknowledge that you are a settler in a country that has stolen land. Imagine the very land underneath you being swept away. Now I want you to feel the land again. Feel your rootedness. Feel your seat on this land. Give thanks for the beautiful land on which you are upon. Give reverence to the Indigenous peoples to whom the land you are on belongs. I invite you to now again feel your feet against the land. Feel yourself in your seat. Feel yourself in your space. Without opening your eyes, imagine what is below you, around you. Sights, smells, sounds. Take a deep breath. In and out. Allow your senses to open to the environment and sounds around you, to sensations where the air touches your skin, sensations where your body touches the areas that are providing support. Let my voice become your voice as I guide your awareness around your body. Become aware of the sensation of your jaw, your mouth, ears, the skin of your face, the nostrils, eyes, forehead and scalp, the back of the neck and shoulders, the natural lightness of heaviness in your arms and hands, and the gentle rise and release of your chest and belly as breath comes in and goes out of the body. Welcome sensations of lightness or heaviness in the legs and feet, in the throb or pulse of the life force that animates every atom, molecule, and cell throughout your body as a field of radiant and vibrant sensation. And as you're settling and opening into meditation, reflect on the following inquiries. What is my overall intention as I'm present today? What is my short-term intention for today's practice that supports you in fulfilling my overall intention? This could be for sustained focus or attention, or to maintain a sense of well-being no matter what else is present, or to simply abide as pure awareness, undistracted by arising content in the mind. Welcome words that come to mind from these two inquiries, placing them in short, present tense moments. For instance, I am focused and present. I welcome the felt sense of unchanging well-being that is present in my body. Take a few moments to welcome and affirm spontaneous and heartfelt intentions that arise within you, that support you living in harmony with yourself and with life itself. Intentions that emerge deep within you for your practice of meditation, and again affirming them with your entire body and mind. As you're doing this, visualize your life and imagine what it's like to be fully living your intentions. What actions are you taking in your life with respect to yourself, others, and the world around you? Set your intentions free to actualize themselves during your practice as you settle into meditating, knowing your intentions will keep you on track and lead you ever more deeply into meditation itself. When you are ready to complete your practice, State an intention that you'd like to take with you in daily life, affirming it with your entire body and mind. Then allow your eyes to open and close several times while maintaining the visceral felt sense of your intention. Continuing to confirm it as your body begins to stretch, and gently move as you come back to your eyes open state of waking consciousness. Now that we have set our intentions and have become grounded, I am grateful to introduce Cree Métis Elder Carrie Moore to guide us in a traditional smudge and storytelling ceremony.
Hi, Carrie. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. And it took me a bit to get in just now. I'm not very good with technology, but I really appreciate the support I had to get me here, and I'm honored to be here. So
it's an honor to have you, honestly. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And this is kind of a different platform. I don't know. For me, I've never been here before. So I am live and coming to you. And I really do appreciate, Eden, what you provided us to begin today. It was a wonderful way to really set us up to come down into spirit. And that's what I'm going to kind of lead into before you begin the rest of your event. And so everybody take that breath again, because I know as we start to talk, we come back up into our head. I am Cree Métis. I originally come from Saskatchewan, Treaty 6 territory. I identify as Cree and Métis because for hundreds of years, I have Cree Métis right next to each other and married into each other. So I do not separate my Métis Cree heritage from who I am. And I belong to the Fish Lake Métis. I also I come from my family reserve. My grandmother's reserve was Muscadet. And I'm living in Calgary now, and I've been here for 47 years. And I'm very honored to be accepted in this Treaty 7 territory as an elder. And I sit on the University of Calgary Elders Board, as well as the Calgary Board of Education Elders Board and many others. So thank you so much for inviting me. I'm also part of the Faculty of Social Work as a wellness elder. And so I'm very honored to bring this story to you. And then I'm going to do a smudge. And I can tell you that doing a smudge, a lot of people think, what is that? Why do Indigenous people begin in that way? Well, as you heard Eden do an amazing job of helping us to relax and coming down into our body. And to us as Indigenous people, we do something very similar to that. We call it a smudge. And everybody has their own way of coming down into their spirit. And Indigenous people are very relational people. We recognize that as human beings, we are just one of the species on Mother Earth. And we forget who we are from time to time. We're the only species on Earth that forget who we are from time to time. So we look to Mother Earth to guide us. We look to Mother Earth to teach us. Mother Earth is our first teacher, and she continues to teach us. She continues to nurture us. She continues to care for us. And we go through all of the issues that Mother Earth goes through too. We feel it deeply. And to us as Indigenous people, we believe when something's happening to us, something's happening to Mother Earth. Because we're a species on Mother Earth, we are affected deeply as well by what is happening to Mother Earth. So when we do a smudge, we use medicines that come from Mother Earth. And those medicines help us to remember who we are. And when Mother Earth helps us to remember who we are, we can actually be our true selves as human beings. And our true selves are the values we carry, not the behaviors. And the values we carry are love and kindness and respect and honesty and compassion and accountability, humility, courage, integrity, all of the amazing values in the universe human beings carry too. And we carry them deep within our belly button, where we're attached to our mothers when we're born. And deep within our belly button is where our spirit resides. And in our spirit is where we carry our values. And so it's not something unique. Every single culture has their way of coming into spirit. And why is that important? Because we want everyone to be their true self. We want everyone to be on the same page. We want everyone to start in a good way with every event that we do, with every day that we greet, with everything that we do in this world. We want to do that from our values, not from our behaviors. Our behaviors we carry in our head. Our spirit is deep within our belly button. So we want to be deep within our belly button, where our spirit is, where our values are, in order to be our true selves, our authentic selves. So I have a very short story to tell you before I offer this blessing. And that short story is a story that comes from my grandmother, Ethel Bear. And this story is a creation story, and will maybe help you understand why we smudge and why we're doing the things that we are doing. So long ago, Creator created the universe, the sun and the moon and the stars, and the animals and the plants, and the rain and the water, and everything Creator created in the universe. And he brought all of those things together in a circle so everyone could face each other. Because when we face each other, we become accountable and respectful. And Creator said to all of those things in the universe, I'm going to bring all of you together, and I'm going to give you wonderful gifts. And those gifts will help you help each other, will help you survive, will help you parent. But the most beautiful gift I will give you is the gift of spirit. And all things in the universe carry a spirit. And in that spirit, Creator placed the values that I just spoke about. And Creator said, and I will give you another gift. I will give you the gift of growing and living in families. Yes, all things live in families, even the plants, not just human beings and animals. The stars live in families. The plants live in families, even the mountains. And all things carry spirit. And Creator said, I will give you another gift. I will give you the gift of never forgetting who you are. And then Creator said, I will bring another species here to Mother Earth. And that species are called the human beings. And the human beings will need to be nurtured and loved and cared for and taught by all of you. And the human beings have spirit too. And the human beings carry all the values that everyone carries. The human beings will also live with families and learn to work with families. The greatest gift that I give to human beings is to be connected to each other, to build those relationships between Mother Earth and everything on Mother Earth, including the human beings. The human beings are coming to help you. The human beings will help you, and there will be reciprocity between you. And one of the little plants that was sitting there in that circle was the tobacco plant, and the tobacco plant came forward and said, "Thank you. I will offer myself to the human beings so that they can offer gratitude to me and pray with me. And when they offer that tobacco to any of us, we will remember that they are here to ask for help and they are showing respect, and we will help them." And so I thank you for that tobacco that was sent to me. I appreciate that. And it shows respect to me as well, so I can help you. And Creator said, the two-leggeds, the human beings, will need you because they will be the only species on Mother Earth that forget who they are from time to time. So when they come to you for help and they pray, you will teach them about being in their spirit so they will remember their true self. So everyone take that breath again and recognize that in order to be our true self, we must be in spirit, not in our head. When we are truly in our spirit, and we get there any way we need to, we can think, we can build relationships, we can process, we can make decisions. We cannot do those things unless we are in spirit. So before we do anything, we take that breath. Even when we're sitting down to a meal, even when we're talking to our children, even when we're out there playing basketball. To be the optimum human being, we must remember that to be in our spirit is how we are going to be the optimum human being. So reach out to Mother Earth with that kindness and respect. We don't pull things from the roots. When you pull things from the roots, they die, they go into trauma. You take them from their families, they will never come back, just like children. So be cautious of Mother Earth and know that at this time here in the Treaty 7 territory, we are learning together. We are practicing reconciliation because the people of Treaty 7 know the plants. They know Mother Earth. They have the songs and the language that works to create that connection to Mother Earth. So remember that it is important to know what the indigenous people of the territory that you are living on are doing and why they are doing what they are doing. Because the people of this territory are the keepers of Mother Earth. We don't own it. We take care of it. And so anyone who comes to these territories, no matter where we are on Mother Earth, we can never remember what our real goal is, which is to provide that protection and love and respect for our relationship with Mother Earth and everything on her, and that includes us. So let me offer this blessing and prayer. I'm truly honored to start everyone in this way. As an elder in this territory, although I'm not originally from here, my Métis family was here too. And so I offer this to all of you, and you will see the smoke rising. Because I picked this beautiful sage plant, it comes from this territory. We use the plants that come from our territories. You can see her smoke rising. That's her spirit. And she's saying, yes, I put that tobacco down when I picked her. And I said, please help us. So she's reaching out to all of you. And when we are smudging, we take that beautiful medicine and we put it over us. And what we are doing is we're getting rid of those things that aren't values. We're getting rid of those things. We're putting them behind us. We're coming down into our spirit. This little plant is helping to remind us to connect to our spirit. And when I put my hand above her, I feel her. And now I remember who I am. So let me offer this beautiful blessing to you for all of you to begin in a good way. Creator, giver of all life, grandmothers and grandfathers of all four directions, Mother Earth. My name is Carrie Moore. We're truly grateful for this beautiful day, Creator. We thank you for the safety that we have today, here and in our territories. We ask, Creator, that you guide us today, that you keep us safe, that you provide many blessings through the speakers, through the learning, through the relationship building. We ask that you watch over this event, help people meet one another, build relationships, help to solve those questions that they have, help us to work together to create a beautiful Mother Earth and a sustainable Mother Earth. And we ask, Creator, that you watch over our families while we are busy doing the work that you have given us to do. And we ask that they are safe and loved and cared for as well. And we ask most of all, Creator, that our blessing today, our prayers today, are spread throughout the world. There is so much pain and suffering and grief, fear, anger in this world. And so many people trying to reach out for help. And we ask, Creator, that all of the people that are in that deep grief because of the losses that they're experiencing and the wars that they're experiencing and all of the things that people are experiencing in the world, we ask for supports and resources to be sent to them. But we ask that our prayers are sent to them today, that they will feel our compassion and they will know they are not alone. We're truly grateful, Creator, for every day we have together. And we ask, Creator, that you continue to guide us, protect us, and bless us. Miigwech. Hi. Amen. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day today, everyone. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Elder Carrie, for guiding us through that wonderful storytelling and smudge ceremony and for sharing your beautiful words and blessings with us. I hope everyone is settled in now and grounded. We are now excited to dive into our summit kickoff for today. As you all know, the SDG Summit is hosted annually by the Sustainable Development Goals Alliance, a student-led organization based out of the University of Calgary Office of Sustainability. This year's theme focuses on ideas to action, generating meaningful change. We've all, heard the saying, change begins with the individual. All of the major activist moments we see today began through a singular spark or one individual, a catalyzing event. And as we continue to navigate and adapt within this rapidly changing global framework, finding the voice and ground to give form to our individual passions and ideologies can truly be challenging sometimes. Through this SDG Summit, we hope to ignite conversations and visions through which the knowledge to action translation becomes sustained, attainable, and impactful. So we are now excited to hear from British Consul General Jonathan Turner, who is giving an address on behalf of the United Nations Conference of the Parties, also known as COP26. COP26 is the next annual climate change conference hosted by the UN, taking place in Glasgow from October 31st to November 12th. And we will now tune in to Jonathan's video address.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Turner, the British Consul General for Alberta, Saskatchewan and Manitoba. I'm delighted to be involved in the Kickoff event for the Sustainable Development Goals Summit 2021. It's inspiring to see this group come together to explore how to move ideas to action through the lens of the SDGs. I've seen firsthand in my last diplomatic posting in Southeast Asia the positive impact the SDGs can have in addressing interconnected issues such as poverty, inequality, climate change, inclusive societies, and access to health and education. That you're attending this summit on a Saturday morning while navigating the uncertainty of the pandemic is a reflection of your passion and commitment to bringing your insight and expertise to solve these issues. Climate change presents the biggest threat to sustainable development everywhere, and its widespread, unprecedented impacts disproportionately burden the poorest and most vulnerable. Now is the time to increase our ambition. Focusing on a green and resilient recovery from COVID-19 will create employment industries of the future, which can be shaped by your leadership, while addressing the urgent and linked challenges of public health, climate change, and biodiversity loss. As I'm sure you all know, the UK government is hosting the COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow at the beginning of November. This summit is our best hope of safeguarding the planet for everyone, building a brighter future, and keeping the 1.5 degree target alive. The summit embodies the theme of ideas to action. We have some specific and stretching goals that we wish to achieve in November. These include reducing carbon emissions, strengthening adaptation to climate change, increasing private and public climate finance flows to meet net zero emissions, and enhancing collaboration between government, businesses, and civil society to tackle our shared climate challenges. While the summit has negotiations on these issues at its core, the programme intentionally includes a day on youth and public empowerment. We want to elevate the voices of younger generations and demonstrate the critical role of public empowerment and education in climate action. The UK is committed to ensuring young people's voices shape its presidency and has established a civil society and youth advisory council. It's co-chaired by Elizabeth Watuti, a 25-year-old climate activist from Kenya, and Bella Lack, an 18-year-old climate activist from the UK, both inspiring examples of taking ideas to action in the context of climate change. Elizabeth's Green Generation Initiative seeks to address challenges such as deforestation, climate change, and environmental injustices by nurturing young environmental enthusiasts to take action on climate, zero hunger, education, and life on land. She does this through greening schools, environmental education, planting fruit trees for food security, and encouraging a culture of planting trees to increase forest cover. Bella is a teenage campaigner for animal rights, wildlife conservation, and environmental issues who recently spearheaded an initiative to buy part of the rainforest in Colombia. In addition, a Youth for Climate event will be hosted by our Italian partners. This will bring together 400 young climate leaders from around the world to develop a declaration which will be discussed with ministers attending the pre-COP negotiations, which will pave the way for COP26. I'm a strong believer that the voice of communities such as this from around the world are powerful catalysts for change. In my short time here so far in Calgary, I've seen some great examples of Canadian youth working on climate action, such as Autumn Peltier, the international renowned water advocate, who is the Chief Water Commissioner for her First Nation, and Aprav Sinha, a young clean tech entrepreneur from right here in Calgary, who has founded Carbon Upcycling Technologies. Global demands for action on SDGs and climate has never been greater, and communities such as this play a vital role in harnessing this momentum to drive real-world action. As you move into the rest of the summit, it's worth keeping in mind some of the following. Although the commitments required by the Paris Agreement and all other national and international agreements, such as the SDGs, they need to be owned by national governments, but success will belong to each and every one of us. Climate change will only be managed through a joint effort and by influencing those in power. A lot of this work is already happening on the ground through initiatives at your university, your community, businesses, and with other groups. Reaching out to other communities across Canada and the globe can be a powerful driver for change. Bringing like-minded thinkers together to find ways to collaborate and to amplify success is vitally important. And finally, action is needed now, but this often builds on what has come before. So maintaining the urgency and momentum is extremely vital in moving ideas to action. I hope you enjoy the rest of today's kickoff and the upcoming events and workshops at this SDG Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan, for that inspiring address. I hope that the insights that were shared drive, our call to action. And from there, so we will now be moving into the synthesis exercise. I would now like to invite our co-chairs, Carolyn and Eden, to host this next portion.
Awesome. So everybody, I'm so happy to welcome you to our synthesis exercise. So at this portion of our introductory event, we are really hoping to employ tools that have been utilized throughout the summit to promote reflection and contemplation towards actionable solutions targeting the SDGs. I feel like so often we talk about employing aspects of sustainability and working towards the SDGs without truly understanding what sustainability means, what the goals represent, or how we can implement them within our daily lives and within our greater communities. I think that understanding in depth what the SDGs are and thinking about how they show up within your own life and how you can implement them within the community create effective solutions in the long run, because they allow you to actually formulate the ideas that promote generating meaningful change. As such, for the synthesis activity, Eden and I will take everybody through an activity where we give you a refresher of the Sustainable Development Goals, let you all know why the SDGs are important to target, and a thinking and reflection activity in which you will all be engaging in the chat. Awesome. So for the first part, what are the Sustainable Development Goals? So as I said, I want to give you all a rundown of the Sustainable Development Goals themselves and what they mean within the context of the globe. There exist 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or as referred to here on out as SDGs, that act as actionable targets for achieving peace and prosperity for individuals, communities, and the globe, as outlined within the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Such an agenda was in development for decades and made alongside countless hardworking nation-state representatives. In 2015, the agenda was adopted by all United Nations member states, which is a huge feat. The Sustainable Development Goals hope to paint a cohesive picture of how individuals, communities, and the world as a whole can pursue meaningful, long-lasting, and engaged forms of well-being that benefit all aspects of life on Earth. So that's including humans, the environment, animals, the water we drink, the air we breathe. And kind of moving on a little bit into what the Sustainable Development Goals themselves are, the SDGs do target a very broad range of sustainable avenues, including quality education, climate action, reduced inequalities, partnerships for the goals, and much more. And I'll just list out the goals themselves here, just so we kind of have in our head an idea of some of the goals. So the first goal is no poverty. The second is zero hunger. The third, good health and well-being. The fourth, quality education. The fifth, gender equality. The sixth, clean water and sanitation. The seventh, affordable and clean energy. The eighth, decent work and economic growth. The ninth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. The 10th, reduced inequalities. The 11th, sustainable cities and communities. The 12th, responsible consumption and production. The 13th, climate action. The 14th, life below water. The 15th, life on land. The 16th, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And finally, the 17th Sustainable Development Goal, partnerships for the goals, referring to the Sustainable Development Goals themselves, of course. So now we're going to talk a little bit about why the SDGs are important. So the Sustainable Development Goals themselves provide us with really guidelines and guidance as a whole on targets for achieving a better, more equitable, more sustainable future for all, while simultaneously protecting the health and well-being of humans, communities, and the environment. So the Sustainable Development Goals don't mean to produce necessarily a utopia where everybody gets along and nothing bad happens. The goals are more trying to promote a world in which we can live together in a sustainable community, a sustainable planet, and within sustainable selves. It must be noted that the Sustainable Development Goals are not mutually exclusive. Any work towards one or some of the goals, or any of the Sustainable Development Goals, really impacts many or all of the other goals in one way or another. So, for example, reducing inequalities is probably going to impact gender equality as a whole. I'm now going to pass it off to Eden to lead our thinking and reflection activity.
Awesome. Thank you, Carolyn, for that refresher on the SDGs. I'm just going to mute you here for a second. Thank you. All right. Okay, for this piece, we ask that you really engage with us. Oh, Carolyn, do you mind just going back? Just backwards of the slide. All right, thank you. All right, I really want to get everyone engaged in the chat here. I see you guys have gone a little quiet. I don't know why. This is for you guys. We would love to hear your voice. Yeah, and for this, we're really just going to kind of be prompting you questions to get you thinking and kind of getting you digging into what your why is and what matters to you. So just building off of what Carolyn has given us about the SDGs, how it's come to be and the importance of it and its target. And right now, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the SDGs. And if not, then you've come to one of the places where you can learn more about it. But as far as a global framework, right now, it feels like it is beyond us, or that it's a really big problem, a really complex issue that we are trying to address. However, we're here and you guys are all here to get involved, to learn more, and to figure out what it is your call to action is and what you can do about it. And so with that, I prompt you, which SDG or SDGs are you most passionate about? If you could share that in the chat with us, if it's a certain goal, a certain number of the goal, or just let us know what it is that matters to you, what values you have. I'm going to give this space for you guys to maybe shoot it in the chat here. Awesome. I'm seeing a lot of goals in the chat. Yeah, sure, you can choose all of them. Why not? But I also prompt you to really dig into your values and really dig into what matters to you. These SDGs are intersectional and they're very complex. And sometimes it takes focusing on your keystone SDG, on what you want to work towards, and being able to contribute to that bigger complex issue. All right, awesome. Okay, I'm just gonna be saying some of these out loud. Adiba's is SDG 17, Partnerships for the Goals. Sunny says, no poverty, peace, and justice, strong institutions, and partnerships to achieve the goal. All right, Lisa here says 3, 4, and 11. And in the case that you do put in your goals, let us know why these things matter to you, why this SDG is a particular SDG that you care about. I really prompt you guys to dig a little deeper and find what really resonates with you. And I prompt you to share it with us today. All right, for Adiba's, SDG 17 is important to her because she thinks that the partnerships to achieving the goals amplify them even more. I definitely agree. I think there's connection everywhere, and even here today, even this bringing us together and sharing these values with each other is something. is a close second. For me is, okay. Diva also mentioned in the chat that the core value for her is community. SDG 17 is all about bringing people together who share a common goal. That definitely resonates with me. I think that there is immense impact in community building, and even just projects built from the bottom up as a community can create immense change in anywhere. Okay. Manveet here. Values goal 3, good health and well-being. Because health is the number one enabler. Without health, a person's potential can be limited. Many goals are connected to this, such as no poverty and clean water and life on land and water. In water, they all affect health. Yes, thank you, Manveet. Exactly. That again touches on the importance of intersectionality, and again choosing or focusing on that keystone SDG that you can focus your efforts towards or your attention towards, because everyone kind of has their own SDG and everyone kind of has their own strengths and where they need to assert those efforts, and everyone's working towards essentially this bigger goal of attending to the SDGs as a whole. All right. Okay, Masumi here. The right to education is very important for me, especially for those countries where education isn't free. That's also a very important thing to note here. These values also kind of depend on, like, the reason why they matter to you depends on your own experience and demographically, what is important to people. For example, us living here in Canada, we may have different priorities and different values of what we feel needs to be addressed right now than those living across the world from us. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, I'm just going to share a few more here in the chat. Lisa has been working towards integrating health, food, and sustainability in the classroom and beyond. Ashling has been taking classes about the energy market and thinks that the innovation and new technologies in the clean energy sector is very important and very interesting. And she hopes to work in this sector. It's amazing. Okay, and Micah values goal number 3. She thinks the idea of well-being really resonates with her. Good health isn't just about physical health, but also mental, emotional, and spiritual. It's about creating holistic individuals who can then work towards the other goals. Thank you, Micah. I think, again, that brings us back into what Elder Carrie Moore was storytelling with us and sharing with us. So that's beautiful. Okay, and Jose, goal number 4. I think providing equitable and accessible education will promote lifelong learning and give all individuals the tools to make a change. All right, yeah, thank you guys for engaging in the chat. You guys have been awesome here. This is amazing. Okay, another one, Maria, SDG 10, to give the right for those in poverty to access better health, education, jobs, and more, that those in the upper classes have access to. Amazing, that's a very important thing to think about. Okay, I love how engaged you guys are in the chat. Thank you for being involved in this. Yeah, and from there, Carolyn, if you could move on to the next slide here in a second. All right, so now we know what SDG you value and why these things matter to you. Can you also say in the chat how you see elements of this in your own community, whether that looks like an issue or even if that looks like a solution? Let us know. Where do you see the gaps in education where you're at, or in public health? Or do you have specific examples of where this needs to be addressed right in your community? Lisa says that she's working on pulling this into the curriculum. Lisa, do you mind elaborating on that a little bit? What exactly are you trying to pull into your curriculum? Is it the SDGs? Adiba here commented, the summit is a great example of partnerships for the goals, bringing community together. Exactly. Awesome. Kevin Doe here says, continued support for social services aimed at lower income residents, newcomers to Canada, infrastructure for active living like bike pathways, community-led projects like community gardens. That's amazing. Is that something that is growing here in Calgary, you would say, Kevin? Or does it need more work? I love that you pointed that out, actually. Carolyn here says, I see quality education where we are coming from at the University of Calgary. I hope that as change makers, we can push forth education to those that do not have the privilege to access it as we have. Awesome. Thank you, Carolyn. Okay. And Lisa, on regarding what she wanted to incorporate more into the curriculum is more education about food equity and the role food plays in mental health and environmental education. And she does this in the classroom and in her business. That's awesome. You guys are already in the middle of creating this change that we're looking for here. And again, it starts locally and it starts in your community, you know, and these things do create ripples. Corey says, Calgary is one of the cleanest cities in the world. She's very grateful to live on this beautiful land. It's amazing. Okay, and Kevin, following up on the support going to social services and areas of Calgary that are run by poverty. Definitely communities across Calgary have begun ramping up these kinds of projects as communities become more engaged with city planning. That's honestly, yes, that's amazing. There's a lot of elements to the SDGs that we don't think about necessarily, or that not everybody thinks about because of the intersectionality. Again, urban planning has such a big effect on the way people live, how societies are built, and the kind of connection people have with one another. Okay, these are amazing. These are things to think about. Thank you guys for sharing this. Okay, and all right. So now we've covered why these things matter to you and how you see it in your community. All right, now let's think about the who's. Okay, let's think about who. Who do these systems in your community contribute to? Like, or who do the systems contribute? Who do they benefit? And who do they impact directly? Who do they impact negatively? Okay, I want you guys to really think about those 3 prompts, okay? Those are 3 different beneficiaries from these systems. And I want you to think about how you fit in that framework. Are you someone who contributes to the system? Are you someone who benefits from the system? Are you someone who is directly impacted by the system? Okay. And again, this adds to the part of why this is a value to you. Okay. And this is also a part of looking into what you can change in the system. By looking into what role you play here, you can better understand what it is that you can do. Oh, sorry, everyone, just having a bit of technical here. But just for the meantime, okay, For the meantime, I will preview Lisa on here with what she's doing to address this. She works with young kids, families, and schools to take action now and inspire the next generation. Okay, again, this is the networks that you're in, right? And the future generation that you are leading. Okay? This is, again, that ripple effect, okay? And this is also kind of a reflection on, again, with looking into how you fit into this framework, it's looking into your privilege and into your power, okay? I want you guys to really reflect on that and understand from that position, like, where does that place you in putting forth these actions, you know? In what systems, in what networks were you able to hear about this summit? Were you able to interact with the summit and be able to talk to whoever that got you into the summit, or even with the Sdga, or even in the systems that you're in today in post-secondary, or if you know what I mean? And from there, I just prompt you to really engage with reflecting on the role that you hold and the power you hold in creating that action. And this in turn will kind of show you what avenues there are for you to address. Is this something that you need to implement more in your life? How can you engage with more organizations that resonate with your values, or people with your values? Okay. Oh, I'm just seeing these comments now. I'm just going to preview them as engagement on the stage here. Okay, Adiba says, as a student, I think we are consistently trying to reclaim our voice within the education institution while advocating for the goals. Okay. And can you elaborate on that, Adiba? How do you mean that you're reclaiming your voice as a student within the education institution? Do you mean like you are creating more of a presence as a student? You are leading the change in the curriculum, you're leading the change in your institution? Masuma, in terms of quality and accessible education, we are privileged to have so many great institutions. However, when we look around the world, many children aren't able to attend school or finish high school because they have to support their family. Okay. Yeah, and again, we have to look at your circumstances and the demographics and see where the systems really aim to contribute and where they don't. Awesome, thank you. Maria says, the welfare system in Canada makes it difficult to those in the lower class to get out of their living conditions, hence making it difficult to pursue SDG 1, 3, and 8. Those who are privileged hardly see and listen to those in that position. Awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. I prompt you guys to also comment in the chat what it is, the kind of role that you think that you are taking in addressing these issues that you had mentioned in here, and how does this affect you? I think that oftentimes we attempt to work towards sustainable solutions within systems that are inherently built on non-sustainable principles. As such, we work to empower the marginalized within systems. that continue to marginalize. Awesome. I think this is an amazing comment here from Carolyn. And again, this pulls it back into that work with decolonization, for example, and really trying to address truth and reconciliation, and how far do our efforts really go, you know, and how far does the reconciliation really go? How active and how founded are those actions, you know? And even if we are aiming towards it, is it out of respect? Do we truly create opportunities for Indigenous peoples to make decisions, to lead change within the systems? Or is it still building actions where, or opportunities for them to still integrate into colonized systems? You know, these are things to think about here. Okay, Leslie here. As a communication officer at UNESCO, in my previous job, I found that culture is a key to sustainable development initiatives. Amazing. Yeah, this is again looking at different perspectives. Who is lacking a voice? Who is not being heard? Who is being impacted the most here? You know? That's amazing. Thank you. I think higher education institutions have a lot of say in what goals matter more than others. For example, focusing on carbon emissions, but students are trying to mobilize their communities to create action on a wide range of things. Okay. I see. If certain goals are being focused on by the institution, do you feel as a student you still have a voice and an action in what you can create focus on? Are you able to create change here? For example, with the Sdga at UFC, this is something to look into, and is this a platform where you feel you're able to express the Sdgs that you want to focus on, and is there actual change going towards that? How involved do you feel like you are on campus in creating this change? Sorry, I'm just sifting through the comments here. Okay. Okay. I really appreciate everyone being super engaged in the chat and really kind of digging into the issues in your community and speaking on like what you're doing in your community and affecting even the youth and spreading your voice here. Adiba says in regards to the action that she feels that she's able to take on campus, despite sometimes the overpowering voice of institutions, is yes, definitely. She definitely thinks that by bringing communities together, they have a voice on campus, and a lot of administration have helped us immensely in sharing this vision. That's awesome, and these are the kinds of systems where you begin to see that change, where there is co-creation between institution and beneficiaries. So that's amazing to see. Lisa, as a teacher, feels like she's doing a lot of work in building awareness and paving the way for students to learn more about these goals. Again, thank you. Yes, this is looking into the role you play, into the privilege that you play, into what kind of information you're able to teach others. Manveet shared that she's been focusing a lot on bridging the gap between students and decision-making institutes. For example, creating a sustainability committee where students and faculty can discuss, as well as for women in STEM. Again, that integration into the institution. This is again looking at those systems and what's missing and whose voices are part of that and who's included. That's amazing. Thank you, Manveet. Yes, and again, she follows up with, so voices can be heard and decisions projects generated together. It's amazing. All right. Yeah, I thank you so much for all your engagement and sharing all these values and talking about what it is that you're doing for your community and where you see the gaps. I hope that by reflecting, by looking into which SDG matters to you and why it is that you value that, and being able to make that connection into how you see it happening in your own community, whether that is arising as an issue or even in a more positive light, you guys have actually identified solutions within your community, which is also, the SDGs are not all cynical, which is super great. And again, I think it really starts with how you fit yourself honestly into that framework of whether you directly contribute to the system or if you benefit from it, or are you directly impacted it negatively. Figure out where you stand there and figure out what drives you. And I hope that by starting off here, you bridge those connections and you bridge that gap, and that you take from here, you take from this synthesis exercise, you think about where you stand in those frameworks, and you bring that with you to every workshop that you attend, and you bring that into every space that you go into when you're talking about sustainable development, or like into the classroom where you are sharing with other people, with other students, with other youth. Okay, and that's where it really starts. And I appreciate you guys coming together and sharing your ideas, and how you can bring that together. From here, I urge you guys to look into that and in your communities, know where you stand and are able to take action, where you are able to get involved. And that is what you guys are doing here today. So I really, I applaud you for that. For the meantime, we can all break for about 15 minutes.
Thank you everyone for joining us again. Hopefully everyone had a restorative break. We are now going to move on to our panel discussion for today, and I will pass it on to Carolyn to introduce our wonderful panelists.
Awesome. So thank you, Eden and Micah, for leading us through the summit so far. As mentioned by Micah, we're now going to commence our panel discussion. Please welcome our 5 panelists for this afternoon: Aditya Chaudhry, Annie Konstantinescu, Tyler Warnock, Catherine Liu, and Beta Malekian. To start our discussion, we're going to begin with a round of introductions. So Tyler Warnock is a second-year medical student at the University of Calgary and co-founder of Reimagine 17. His work exists at the intersections of climate justice, global health, and community engagement. He is an alumnus from the Queen Elizabeth Scholars Program and was named a top 2020 Top 30 Under 30 by the Alberta Council for Global Cooperation. At the University of Calgary, he co-founded the Sustainable Development Goals Alliance and has worked to raise awareness and deepen student engagement with sustainable development. He obtained his Bachelor of Health Sciences from the University of Calgary. Catherine is a sustainability advocate and second-year medical student at the University of Calgary. Her interests, which include mental health, sustainability, and the health of marginalized populations, share a common focus on community engagement, social justice, and youth capacity building. She was part of the student team that organized the very first SDG Summit and helped found the Sustainable Development Goals Alliance in 2017. And I'm just trying to see if Catherine is on stage yet, and I'm just hoping that somebody in the background could potentially add her on stage if that works. Recently, she also helped co-found Reimagine 17, a youth-led nonprofit that works to amplify student action on the SDGs through collaboration between post-secondary institutions across Canada. She credits her undergraduate degree as the tipping point that kickstarted her learning around sustainable development, social justice, and community engagement, and is a strong believer in the value of experiential learning and mentorship and fostering resilient student champions for the SDGs. When she isn't studying, Catherine enjoys driving out to the mountains, exploring new restaurants, and finding new shows on Netflix. So Adita Chaudhry, lovingly known as Adi, is an engineer turned consultant who works to help businesses, organizations, and governments bring their platforms to the digital front. While he pursues his professional career, he complements it with many endeavors in the realm of development. As an extensive volunteer with Engineers Without Borders Canada, he currently leads the Calgary Professional Chapter, focusing on leveraging the professional crowd to take action on social, political, and development issues. Caring deeply about matters like poverty, inequality, and climate change, nothing excites him more than galvanizing young people over the same topics, because to him, this means that tomorrow's leaders are already taking their first steps. Adi is always involved in so many causes and so many organizations and initiatives that he was even recognized as an Alberta Top 30 Under 30 in 2018. When not at his desk, he can be found volunteering his time in a local animal shelter, enjoying the majestic Canadian Rockies, or immersed in practicing Hindustani classical music. Vida Malekian is a passionate member of Water Movement. She has spent the last 3 years listening to, learning from, and connecting with operators, the first line of defense against this national water crisis. She has seen firsthand the incredible resilience, critical thinking, and resourcefulness that operators need to bring work every day. Vida hopes that Water Movement will be a resource to ease some of the challenges operators face and ultimately champion Sustainable Development Goal 6, clean water and sanitation. She welcomes any students interested in learning more about SDG 6 Water Movement to connect and chat over some first school coffee. And then finally, Annie Constantinescu. I always mispronounce your last name. I'm so sorry. Annie has always placed a really high value on education. So the phase knowledge is power is rooted in her very core and has driven her into the world of climate literacy and communication. With almost 10 years in the advertising industry under her belt, her marketing attention is focused on how climate change information is shared. In a world where we are bombarded with data, text, emails, and content, Annie works to cut through the noise and find the nuggets of info that bring value and make a difference. After completing her master's, Annie started her own educational series called Climate Change Sunday School. This platform is meant to break down the many topics and themes that exist within climate change and make them more digestible for people. Annie's main goal is to equip people with the knowledge and tools available to help connect them with the climate movement and hopefully lead to beneficial change. Awesome. So I'm going to start out. Also, if you see me looking around, I do have multiple screens, so I'm not staring off to the distance while talking. It's just, technology these days. So the first question I have is Tyler and Catherine, and I'm hoping that Catherine is on here. Oh, yes, she definitely is. Okay, that's awesome. First question I have is for Tyler and Catherine. So having founded the Sdga, how did you first recognize that the UCalgary campus was missing that unifying network and platform? I'll start with that, and then I have a follow-up question kind of after that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I can take this first one. Again, thank you folks for having us here. It's nice to be back working with the Sdga. I think back in 2017, we were originally founded as a group of students who came from kind of a broad range of clubs and groups. And on campus at that time, there wasn't really a lot of SDG specific programming. And we thought, wouldn't that be neat to have kind of a shared space for students to kind of come together and collaborate and kind of advance conversations about the SDGs on campus. So I think that was kind of one of the initial reasons why it was created. And it really was kind of born out of us not necessarily seeing something that we wanted on campus and then kind of deciding as a group to make it happen and make it kind of come to life.
Awesome. No, that's super awesome. And then I guess a follow-up to that is, and since 2017, how have you seen the SDGA grow and effectively garner institutional, financial, and community support? And how did you go about that?
I guess I can take this one. Yeah, so it's definitely like a really big learning process for us, I guess. I think like over the years is really about kind of just developing relationships with people at the University of Calgary and the community. We started with like kind of like more of like personal contacts we just knew, and it kind of like grew from there. And I think what really we really love about like the SDGs is how, by nature they are very like interdisciplinary and multi-sectoral, and because of that, like they really appeal to a lot of people, and it allows us to kind of connect with very like diverse, I guess, like population and community, because kind of like everyone has a stake in creating like a sustainable future. And that's something we realize is that on campus there's already like a ton of students and student groups who are already advancing the SDGs, and so what we want to do is really just like kind of create connections between all those people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think you definitely succeeded in doing so, which is awesome. Thank you so much. The next question I have is for Annie. So, coming from a business-oriented background, what compelled you to pursue climate research?
Okay, I'm off mute. So yeah, thank you just for the question. It's so tough because if you're someone who's had a relationship with the planet, with the environment at any point in your life, it's always something that might be in the back of your head. So I was very lucky to have parents who really enforced that spending time outdoors, playing in the mud, those kind of elements. And I think the environmental movement was always something kind of just at the back of my head, but my attention really focused to business when I went to school. And looking back on that, it's really interesting how the way that business is traditionally taught. So in university, the way it's spoken about on podcasts, or the way that it's even shown in TV and movies, like there's this very there's this focus on efficiency, and there's this focus on taking and building and growing. But when you look at all of those examples, that the opposite of what the impacts of what is happening to the planet is never truly represented. So it wasn't until I think my early 20s that I was like, okay, now I'm in the business world. I've graduated. I get to kind of choose what I invest my brain in next. And the climate movement was just starting up on more of a global scale. It's always been important. And obviously we've had all the Paris Climate Accords and the Kyoto Protocol, like they've always been there, but I think the Paris Agreement really kind of pushed it to the forefront. And I jumped on that bandwagon and really started doing some heavier research. And from that, you're just shocked by how much is not shared when you're doing those business courses. It was not shared in the movies. And it was this, again, kind of with my business background, they always teach you, and anyone who's studied commerce or taken a business course might relate to this, it's to find those opportunities of what's missing in the market. And I found that while there's a lot of information out there, it's very hard to find digestible information that can translate to action, or can translate to, well, what does this mean for me? Because I can hear as much as I can about what's happening in the Arctic, for example, with melting ice caps, but what does that mean for me as a person who's living in Canada, who's living in Calgary? Like it's that bridge that has always been a driver for me, and why I even went into advertising in the first place. So that was kind of like the start of why how I started evolving more the knowledge I had. And once you kind of start down that path, it's very hard to stop, because there's just so much information out there. And if you're passionate about it, you'll want to gobble it all up. So yeah, I hope that answered your question there. It's a good question.
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of follow up on that, did you experience like any challenges trying to merge those realms of work? And how did you, if you did, like how did you kind of mitigate those? Because I know, as you said, like there's definitely like a difference, kind of a divide, really.
Yeah, that's another good follow-up question. So the challenges and barriers that I find with communicating the climate movement is very similar to the challenges I face when I look at when I'm working in advertising. So when you work in advertising, you have to be very aware of social trends. You have to be aware of psychology. You have to be aware of cultures, because especially with certain brands, like you have a larger target market. But the problem with advertising is that you are competing for such in-demand attention. We are constantly surrounded by content that is creative, that is engaging, and we all have our own preferences. So the challenges I find with communicating climate change is really understanding what those different niches are for people, because there's no silver bullet. There's no one way to communicate climate change that works for everyone. Some people place more value on scientific data. Some people place more value on the stories that they hear their friends telling, or firsthand stories of people who are actually impacted by climate change. So again, it's finding what works best for most. And I don't think anyone really has the answer to that, but that's something that I know I always work with, or what I'm working on is how do we find the better combination to get people to hopefully move to that place where action is accessible and it's possible within the realm of what their own lives are. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annie.
No problem.
Yeah, that's really insightful actually to think about. I think kind of moving forward, talking about how to, employ challenges that you've experienced from one field, kind of matching them into another. That's really awesome.
My workshop will be all about that.
Awesome. Okay. My next question is for Beta and Addie. So I do have two questions actually. I will preface with that. So first one is kind of a bit of background on the question, I guess. A large part of your work deals with place identity. And seeing as you've worked in various locations, how does place identity shape how we engage and communicate environmental issues and sustainability in that place?
Sorry, Addie, do you want to take it? I'm getting the network error again.
Sure thing. Hey, good morning.
I can hear. Oh, okay.
Oh, can you hear me? Can everybody
I can hear
me?
you.
Okay, great. First of all, good morning, and thank you so much. Both Bida and I are so honored to be here, and it's really great to see some familiar faces. I remember when Tyler and Catherine held their first ever SDG summit, and to see it grow and come to where it is, it's truly fantastic. You were talking about identity and places, and I think I want to start that question by just alluding to the fact that we're on unceded territory, right? Our work with water movement takes us all over the country, and really bringing the stories of the frontline heroes that are the ones lifting boil water advisories, and kind of tackling this water crisis that Canada is facing. So it brings me to there when I think about identity, where Canada's real identity lies. And it's truly humbling to see that these heroes are kind of going very, they're not doing what they're doing for recognition. They're not doing what they're doing for anything other than just simply getting their communities clean drinking water. So when you talk about place and identity, I think about all the different cultures and all the different stories and the histories that we get to experience and get to hear about when we travel to these different communities and get to see them, tell their stories. I want to allude to, and then Bida might be able to expand more, but there is someone named Warren Brown in Lytton First Nation, all the way in BC. And I remember he is somebody who is so experienced, and this person who has literally lifted his community out of advisories, and he keeps refusing wage increases so that his water treatment plant can continue operating and he can retain operators. And he was asked, it was on CBC, and he was asked, okay, well, why do you do this, right? Because you could go to, for example, Vancouver and you could get a much better wage, why do you do this? And he said, I do it for my family, I do it for my friends. And so these are the places my mind goes to when you talk about place and identity throughout Canada. And I think just to see that evolution that's going on with how we recognize the first, people of this country, And it's very humbling. It's makes you think. And I'll hand it over to Vida, but before I do that, I think it's a statement of its progress and a statement of where we've come is exactly why we're recognizing this coming Thursday.
Perfect. And sorry, guys, I keep getting the poor network error, so just shoot me a message if you guys can't hear me. But Addie couldn't have said it any better. These are the silent heroes in the communities. And no matter where we go from coast to coast, we see that over and over again. These are the frontline workers in the water crisis, and they're essential workers. And we often forget about that until the tap water isn't running. So having the opportunity to work with these leaders has been absolutely incredible, and we want to do everything in our power to shed the light back on them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then I guess kind of as a follow-up question, moving more to like your role in the community, I know that you both have a lot of experience working as a mentor with youth in your community and trying to engage youth. What's one valuable lesson that you've learned from that about working with youth and sustainability and engaging youth?
It's a really good question. I think something that both Addie and I have probably experienced is that everyone is different. Everyone has different passions. Everyone has different interests. So with water movement, what we try to do is we try to take what that person's skills and talents and interests are, and we try to mold the position for them. So for example, we have videographers, we have website developers, editors, engineers. We have all walks of life using their skills and talents to support water movement. And when we give workshops and lunch and learns to younger students, and they see that no matter what field they go to, they can use their passion and their interest to help the greater good. So that's what we try to really emphasize with water movement, it's a joint effort of everyone in the community. It's not just engineers, it's not just the filmmakers who are going on site and filming these operators. It's literally a joint effort with everyone.
And I'll add to that. I think I've had the privilege of working with a lot of really, really talented young people, and I'm this person. I'm like, I used to not be fond of like kids and young people, and that's how my journey started. And I was like, oh my god, like no way, right? But then I don't know when and what changed, because when I started, entering this space, this mentorship space, what really, really drove me and what really drives me today is seeing how I can tap into their spark. I think what Vida was saying, that everyone is different, and I think especially it's changing now, but there's this narrative that we all like to really push that, oh, you must, for example, we push for STEM, right? We push for all these glorified careers and pathways that we want young people to go into because they're, revered. However, it's so important to realize that everyone has their strengths and they need to play to those strengths. And all of these strengths are so, so beautiful, right? You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to be, whatever that profession is that is, laid out by your parents or your community or society or family, whatever it is. And when you realize that you can be, the best at what you want to do and what you want to be, it's the most beautiful thing. And that is my favorite thing about this space, tapping into that potential. And we try to do that at Water Movement too, right? When we get younger people that want to support. And I'll allude to what I do with EWV, Engineers Without Borders. Whenever someone, younger, especially someone younger, they come in and they're like, well, I want to volunteer. And they're ready, like, what positions do you have? What projects do you have? And I always take them to a coffee shop. Well, now it's virtual. And the first thing I said, well, what do you want to do? And I think for many of them, it takes them back because they're so used to this world, telling them what to do. No one asks, what do you want to do? What do you see the change that's needed in this world? And I see their eyes light up when they hit that topic or that passion. And then I say, okay, well, how can you, with Water Movement, with the chapter, bring that to life? What are your ideas? What are your strengths that you're going to bring? And going that route with as many young people and youth that I can is just, it just brings me so much joy. And the reason I do this also, and I think most of us do this, is because we're investing in tomorrow's leaders. The biggest, proverb or whatever you want to call it that I say is that we need to influence younger people to do good and to be the best that they can be, because one day they're going to be the one in really, really big chairs making really, really big decisions that's going to influence a lot of people, whether they like it or not. We're all going to, even all of us here, we're on our way to making a lot of impact, making a lot of influence. So the more we think about these, the more we, are conscientious, the more we tap into our passions, the better the chance is that when we get to those seats, the decisions that we're going to make are going to have an even more impact.
Awesome. That's very inspirational. Thank you so much, Addie and Peta. I just have one more question, but it's going to be for the all 5 panelists. So maybe we can go in like a pass the ball kind of scenario. And the question is, has there been a particular moment where you truly felt that you embodied ideas to action generating meaningful change, like the theme of this summit, whether as an individual or an organization? And what was it? Where did you kind of feel this embodiment of where you took this idea and created, a meaningful, actionable change out of it? And I think I can pass it first to Tyler, and then we can go around like that.
Sure, thank you for the question. I think with our time with the Sdga, one of the big things that like Catherine and I wanted when we kind of stepped down and finished our terms was thinking about how we're going to ensure kind of long-term sustainability of the Sdga and of the organization. This was at a time in Alberta when there was a lot of post-secondary institution cuts to funding and a lot of uncertainty in terms of, how much can we really allocate to sustainability programming and engagement. So one of the kind of big ideas we had was to apply for a quality money grant to kind of invest more funds into sustainability programming at the university. And, it kind of was something that we had thought of, and we thought, oh, this might be a little bit far-fetched, but we applied and thankfully we did win it. And it's something that we now know has been used to like fund Sdga programming for the next 4 years. Well, I guess 3 years by now. But it's something that we wanted to put in place to ensure that we'd be able to guarantee spaces for students to still have conversations like these, like the summit, and like, kind of the day-to-day stuff that the Sdga does on campus. So really it was a moment of, seeing an issue that we had and thinking big and just kind of jumping in, and it all worked out in the end, which was nice.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tyler. I'll pass it on to Catherine.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about like Reimagine 17, because I don't think we've touched on it yet. But basically, it's kind of like a nonprofit organization that Tyler and Adiba, who's also in this event too, I think, all of us are involved in this organization, and it's really about kind of mobilizing students from across Canada who are currently doing like SDG work on their campuses and finding ways for them to kind of like collaborate and mobilize together. And that was kind of like a serendipitous, almost like way in which we came together. Like we ended up all presenting at a conference run by SDSN, and we all connected and realized, oh my God, we're all doing like very similar work on our campuses. We didn't know that, but like we're all coming up with these ideas, and we're like, why don't we come together as a group and kind of make something out of that? And that was like, I think probably like a year and a half ago, maybe about a year ago actually. And since then it's been like a really cool process where we've been able to kind of like establish a nonprofit and everything, and really find ways in which kind of community can really help support young people and students in, developing a passion for something, finding resources, building new connections. And I think, I don't know, something like Tyler and I really wanted to emphasize in this panel was really about, for us, a big realization was about recognizing that, like, because I think as students, it's sometimes really hard to step into like the sustainability or like the SDG space and feel that you can make an impact. And for us, what was really meaningful was to understand that like students and youth bring kind of like this inherent value and importance to these conversations. And so you should never kind of like doubt that, your place here. And so that was really important, something that we really wanted to, I think, push for with Reimagine 17.
Awesome. It's incredible to hear about all these initiatives that are kind of pushing this legacy of sustainability forward. So that's really awesome. Thank you, Catherine. I'll pass it on to Annie.
So Awesome. Sorry, I feel like my mic always takes.
I think you're muted, Annie.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, guys. It takes like 3 seconds for the mic thing to work for me. Okay. So when I think of ideas to action, it's tough because the first thing I always, or what I thought of when the question was asked, it immediately goes to people who aren't open to ideas and aren't open to action. And it might seem a little counterintuitive, but the place that I feel like I've had maybe the most amount of impact or been able to encourage change are with people who do not agree with what I usually say, what I usually try to promote. And I've had so many amazing and insightful conversations with people who don't believe that climate change is real, and for people who don't think we can do anything about it and that it's out of our hands anyways. And it's always by listening to individuals who have a different discourse, who have that different opinion, that can enable you to understand empathetically what those people need, again, to change if they are interested in that. And similarly, it just makes you a stronger communicator. It makes you a more well-rounded individual because you're not kind of living in your own thought bubble or the echo chamber, essentially, that you can expand to other things. So while I don't have, I think, like a really perfect packaged up answer of like, what was one great example? Like I could list workshops like what's happening this week, or events like this, or connecting with other leaders who clearly are doing some amazing work. But I think the areas that I've had the most change are the places I think I would have the least amount of change, but approaching conversations respectfully and engaging in just open and honest dialogue and meeting people where they need to be to hopefully get them to a place where, I mean, I biasly think that we all need to be getting to. Yeah,
that's incredible, Annie. And I love how you talk about, meeting people kind of where they are and taking them to this place. I think that's really important to keep in mind, especially not even with, only climate action, but also with sustainability work as a whole. So that's really awesome. I will pass it to Addie.
I really like what you said, Annie, and I think it's hard to just think of that one thing, right? Because when we realize the potential that we all have as as human beings, there's so many things that we were able to take from idea to action, idea to impact, action to impact, whatever it is. But I always like to share a story of where I was demonstrating a bit of apathy, but because I still kind of put in the effort and went through with it, it had tremendous impact. And I share this story because it's a great reminder of why we should always give a crap. So this was with Engineers Without Borders, and I think it was 2015 or 16, and it was my first day of action. And what we do is we go to Parliament Hill, and we kind of storm the hill, if you will. There's like 100 EWBers from coast to coast, and we have meetings with members of Parliament to discuss international development. And I was kind of like, my attitude towards politics then was, politics, many ticks, right? I did not enjoy politics. I, would vote just for the sake of it. Like, it was very, very apathetic. So the fact that I was dragged across the country to go to the capital to talk to leaders that I, didn't really care about, it was, apathy would be one word to describe it. And so here I am, preparing to speak to these MPs and figuring out the speaking points, learning about Canada's role as a global citizen, figuring out how we can increase our foreign aid, foreign policy, figuring out where Canada can really have tremendous impact. And I remember I kind of put in the effort just because I had to, and I had a great day of meetings, met many amazing leaders, and then I went back to school. And I kind of forgot about it. And then came, fast forward a bunch of months, and then came the following year's federal budget. And I remember my friends like, oh, they're announcing the federal budget. Didn't you go to Parliament Hill to advocate for something? And I was like, yeah, something like that. And, I switch on the TV and I'm listening to Prime Minister Trudeau, read out what the federal budget is going to be composed of and what are the organizations and things like that had say in it. And of course, they mention Engineers Without Borders, and then they mentioned that they're going to increase ODA funding to the amount that we had said. And my jaw dropped because I said, I didn't think I had an impact, right? Like, it wasn't just me, it was a lot of people, but the fact that whatever I did, an idea, if you will, was brought to an action, which was going and speaking. And that turned into an impact, right? We were able to influence foreign policy. Like, how crazy is that? So I get goosebumps every time I talk about this story, because that really, I think, was a very big domino effect for me, because then I started, giving a crap about things, because I'm like, hey, what I do matters. And even more important, what we all do matters. And that collective effort can lead to tremendous, tremendous impact. So that's the story I like to share. And I'll leave you all, and especially people watching with this, whenever you think that, you can't do something, or you think about, when will this idea turn into an action, or, when will I achieve this and that, just take, we tend to look forward and we're like, oh, we have so long to go. We have such a mountain to climb. But take a moment and look back and see how far you've already climbed, and use that as motivation to turn more ideas into action and more actions into impact.
I love that so much, Addie. That is such an incredible story. I will remember it for years, honestly. That is so inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I will finally pass it to Beta.
Thank you. And yeah, that was incredible, Addie. I've heard this story before, and every time it definitely resonates with me. So I think the whole concept of ideas to action, I think as a society, especially our generation, we're all driven to immediate results. We all want to see our ideas implemented right away without taking the longer process that we should be taking. So with water movement, it took us 3 years of literally just listening to the experts, listening to the operators, to professors, to industry experts. And I think a lot of times, especially younger students, they don't want to put in that extra time, but that's how we were able to create such a successful and valuable platform, is because we put in that effort. So I think the key thing to always remember when you want to implement a new idea is to remember to engage stakeholders, remember to engage all parties, and to continue to listen, because we're never the experts. Addie and I are hosting the workshop on Monday, but we're not the experts. We're still learning every single day from everyone. Everyone has a different input. So I think whenever you have a new idea, that is awesome, stick to it, but remember to take those extra steps, even though it'll prolong the process by maybe years, like it did with water movement. We are constantly evolving, constantly shifting how we approach things, because we're still going through that listening and learning process.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, I would love to thank all participants here for their expertise and wisdom. We do have a bit of time right now to open up the floor to the audience for a bit of a question and answer period. We'll have 10 to 15 minutes for this section, and I'll be facilitating the questions to the panelists. So just please include any questions that you have for the panelists in the Q&A function in the chat, and that would just make it so much easier for me, and we'll proceed them through just as time permits. Okay, so I'm seeing there's actually a lot of questions right now. So a question for Catherine and Tyler. So how do you envision the SDGA evolving over the years?
Yeah, this is a good question. Thanks, Adiba. I think it's hard to say. I think there's a lot of different ways that the SDGA could go. Ideally, of course, we'd like to see it grow on campus. I'm quite interested in seeing where the connections might go between our SDGA here at UCalgary and other similar organizations at institutions across Canada. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for kind of collaboration within our province and within the country to really mobilize more students to be involved in the SDGs. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there for working together, for advocacy work. We know that a lot of these messages are so much more powerful when you have that really strong grassroots kind of people power that's pushing it. So I'd love to see the SDGA in the future kind of evolve into that space.
Awesome. Okay, and then I see, a question here from Sunny, who says, another question for Tyler and Catherine. How do you manage time to be students and engage in community building as well as raising awareness about sustainability? So kind of like this time management piece, I think.
Sure, I can take this one. I have to admit that like I have never been very good at time management, so this is definitely a tough one. I think especially for people who you have a lot of interest, definitely something I've struggled with. I don't know. I guess I think one, it's like tapping into like what's really most important to you and what you care about, because that's what's going to really drive you and like get you up in the mornings and everything like that. I think like some really advice I got was that like you have like all these different competing priorities, especially as like a student, like you have a lot of things on the ground, but you really need to, I guess, like prioritize like what aligns most with like your goals and your values, and what kind of like gives you energy. And for me, like I think when I started university, I just like threw myself into like a bunch of different like clubs and extracurriculars, and at the end of the year I was like feeling like super overwhelmed and burnt out by all of those. And it was a process of having to like reflect a little bit and see like, you know, what's giving me energy, what am I most excited to do. And for me, one of those things was like the Sdga, and that's something that I carried through. And maybe you have to let go of some other opportunities that are like super exciting, but that frees up time so you can focus on the things that like really matter to you.
And I'd just quickly add to that, working within the Sdga space can sometimes feel very overwhelming because there's just so many competing priorities. We're living through right now multiple global crises, and it can feel at times that like there's a mountain of work that needs to be done, but don't let that like discourage you or kind of bog down your work, because if you're able to focus on areas that you're most passionate about and areas that you're able to drive impact in, that's really like what our roles are here in doing this work. None of us are going to be able to solve all 17 of the goals and all of the problems that they kind of pose, but find that niche area that works well for you and do it well. And I think that's a really good way to kind of frame and kind of manage your time and not get spread too thin.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I see a question from Veronica who says, question for all. How do we as students, graduates, and citizens inspire others to become a part of the movement of sustainability? So especially, you know, inspiring the younger generation. How do we go about that? And I'll pass it to whoever, or I think that Annie was kind of touching on this earlier, is what she was going to talk about in her workshop on Tuesday at 1 p.m. So I might pass it to her just because I feel like there was a segue earlier, but if anyone else wants to speak on it afterwards, feel free.
Thank you, Carolyn, and I'd welcome anyone else to chime in as well. And I'm very curious to see what other people want to say. I think it's so interesting because when I think of the younger generation, I truly see them already as the leaders of the sustainability movement. You have your Greta Thunbergs of the world who are giving a platform for younger generations to say, this is my future you're messing with, and encouraging them to have a voice within that conversation, which I think rarely is seen over the last few decades when it comes to big social issues. Malala would be kind of like the closest comparative that I can think of, at least, that has such impact and resonates with so many different countries worldwide. But I think when it comes to specifically getting people to be aware and engaged, honestly, it comes down to conversations. I don't know if anyone's like heard of the Clubhouse app or has like played around with it. But when it was like much bigger earlier on in the year, like it was so encouraging to see so many conversations happening within that platform. And it's all verbal chat rooms essentially, but so many people just asking honest questions about the environment and about climate change, because doing the research yourself, as I mentioned earlier, it's really hard to interpret it. It's sometimes very academic, it's very scientific, and that causes a lot of barriers for people to understand. But if you have a position on it, if you've been educated, and then you reach out to people and extend that information to them in a non-judgmental, pushy kind of way, I find that is just, it's a great way to inspire people, because a lot of the times people just don't know. You'd assume because you're so in it that a lot of people obviously know what's going on, and like, should they? Maybe. But the conversations you can have with maybe older generations who have probably more influence within their own workplaces or within their own networks, that can really go a long way. And yeah, just setting the example, I think, is also a great way to engage younger generations, because like I, for example, have a younger sister, and I've been a bigger champion about this, and now she's very into it, but I don't think without me that would have necessarily happened. So you never know, just by embodying the best version of what you would want to see, like how that can ripple outwards and make change that way. So yeah, thanks for the question, Veronica. And I'd be, again, very curious to see if anyone else has anything to add or completely disagrees, because that's totally okay too.
Of course. Thank you so much, Annie. And I'll give a little pause if anybody else wants to add. Okay, awesome. So I see a question here for Vita and Addie, that from Eden: do you have any mentorship programs in place within water movement that work towards developing the sense of self and identity that was kind of touched on earlier?
That's a great question. So currently we've just been focusing on creating more videos for Water Movement's video learning library, while also hosting lunch and learns and workshops for younger students to learn more about the water crisis. We don't have anything related to a mentorship program related to self and identity, but if it's something of interest, we can definitely look into it and try to adapt our efforts to encompass that as well.
I'd just like to add that I think even if there aren't any formal, mentorship programs or a structure that, people might be seeking, again, it's that idea of, when we see an organization or a program, we often look for that formal structure, right? We were like, okay, what do you have for me? But I'd like to turn that around just to encourage everyone that's interested in working in this water space, especially this, very dire water crisis space. I always, people ask Vita and myself often, what makes you passionate about this? And we're like, people don't have water. Like, what more do you want us to say? Like, of course, like, this is at the forefront of the issue, right? So in line of that, there are many ways to get involved, right? Just because there isn't a formal mentorship program with water movement doesn't mean that you can't support water movement, doesn't mean you can't work with water movement, and doesn't mean that you can help end this water crisis, right? So read up on things, support more Indigenous voices, learn about, just start here, right? Like, a lot of us, we do a lot of this work, but we don't even know what are the Indigenous communities around Calgary. Who are they? What are some of the traditions? What are the cultures, right? There's so many ways to get involved, so many ways to start. And I'm going to allude to another question about time management earlier, because I think this fits in with this narrative. I came up with a theory about all of us, human beings, is that I think there is enough time in the day to do it all. But I think inherently we procrastinate like no other. If you take a moment to think about how much time it took to actually get the work done versus how much time it took to actually get started, I'll leave it at that. So in line with that, just jump in. Google, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it is, start looking for ways that you can get involved, ways you can learn more. And I think the very first step to any kind of movement, any kind of work, is just awareness. Do you know that this problem exists? Do you know in detail what this problem is? And as soon as you have that knowledge, as soon as you put in that effort to learn about it, you will immediately, like, your mind will tell you where you should go next, what you should do next. So just jump in, get involved, and you'll thank yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions, if depending. But this is an awesome one from Micah. So, question for all speakers: In your process of making these changes and founding such revolutionizing organizations and movements, how did you deal with self-doubt, external challenges that came along the way, which may have staggered the momentum? And I'll open the floor to anybody who wants to speak on this.
I can start with this question. I think this is something that all organizations will experience, and Water Movement has experienced it every step of the way, unfortunately. I think if you're a bit younger and you're trying to get into a space that's small, a small sector, or a space that's typically a bit older generation, like right now we have a lot of people in the water sector who are in the retirement age. Whenever you're bringing these new ideas, you're going to get a lot of pushback. You're going to get a lot of doubt towards you. And I think there were so many times where Addie and I had a question like, are we on the right path? Are we on the right path? And I think it's because we did take those extra steps of constantly engaging stakeholders in the communities and making sure that the ideas were coming from them and that they found what we were doing valuable. And that's what really pushed us through when we were given all this self-doubt. And I think no matter what you pursue, you're always going to get that. And it's good. It really is good because it makes you think, it makes you second guess some of the steps you're taking. But it by no means means that you should stop what you're doing. You should stop the path. You just have to keep progressing and take any of that self-doubt as ways to improve. But I think it's something that every organization unfortunately experiences, but if you look at it in a positive sense, it can really help your organization grow. And Addie, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I did just a little bit, and then I do want to hear from everybody else, so I won't take up much time. I wanted to say something that's probably going to be needing a little bit of grain of salt. I think one of the things when we do face self-doubt and challenges, which undoubtedly we will all face and we all have, is to kind of take a step back and process it. I think often we're quick to just be like, oh, this is a negative thing. Someone is against me. This process is not working out for me, right? But maybe there is something for me to work out, right? Maybe there's a perspective that I need to see. So when you do face challenges and doubts, don't immediately think of a way just to be like, okay, I need to get over this, or I need to find out, how to challenge it back, or whatever it is. Like, take a step back and, just see yourself from that third perspective. Be like, okay, is this true about me? Maybe do I need to change this? Do I need to look at this from a different angle? On top of the other things that Bida had mentioned, I think that awareness part is critical, because sometimes the self-doubt or challenge is that, whatever you're doing might be the issue, and you do need to maybe change things around. So look at it from all directions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And if anyone else had anything to add, we are just running to the end of our panel session. So
I can do like a really quick one, because the only thing I want to mention is that self-doubt and external challenge can very easily turn into internal doubt and internal challenge. So it's not an easy space, anything related to the climate, especially when you look at the data and what the academic scientific minds of the world are saying and agreeing upon. So it's really important to just make sure you take the time for yourself and surround yourself with people who also care and understand the challenges of what working in the space is. So yes, obviously there's going to be a lot of pushback externally, but I find it's so much easier to deal with that, especially if people don't agree or people feel like there's better ways to do it or different ways to do it, if you internally are more solid. And I say that as if it's an easy thing to do. It's not. It takes years to really practice, but I find, again, just taking time for yourself, understanding when you've reached your own limits, because that will happen and that is okay. And then having a network of people you can rely on to bring you back so you can continue the amazing work that you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then if there's any other comments from Tyler or Catherine, feel free.
I'll make a very quick comment. Like, similar to, I really liked what you were saying, Annie. Like, personally for me, I think I definitely struggle with a lot of like kind of like imposter syndrome, especially at like the beginning, and still continue to like struggle with that. And just like feeling that like, oh my God, I can't make a difference. I don't know enough. I don't have the skills. And I think for me, like, when you're like met with that kind of like self-doubt, or you're kind of like questioning yourself and like why you're here, exactly what you were saying, like Annie, like I think surrounding yourself with people and like really leaning into your relationships is what really gave me confidence and gave me strength, because a lot of the times like it feels like you're alone in doing the work you're doing. But there's actually a huge network of support around you. And even I'm thinking like Addie of our first meeting, because you were really great support in like helping us get the SDGA off the ground. And so there's tons of mentors, people around there who really want to support your work, even though there's also a lot of kind of like other people who maybe really oppose it. But I think really remembering that to like reach out to people, don't just like hide in on yourself, but like reach out for support, because there is like a huge community of support around you.
Awesome. And if you had any final thoughts, Tyler, feel free.
I'd say that also, along with imposter syndrome, like there can be this feeling that like you need to be the expert or you need to have all the answers. And I think the sooner that we realize that it's okay to not know everything, and instead to be more positioned to learn and be curious and ask for help and kind of set those boundaries with the folks that you work with, I think takes a lot of that pressure off of you, from thinking that you have to be able to, you know, have all the answers to solve the SDGs, and that's not realistic. We don't all have the answers to do that. So I think that was something that really helped us in growing the Sdga, is knowing when to ask for help and knowing when to be curious and to explore and try things and see if it works. And if it doesn't, learn from what went wrong and try and be better for the next time around.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that has marked the end of our panel period. I do see a question though regarding how people may reach you if they want to get in touch, maybe like talk about your work or get involved with your organization. So yeah, I leave it to all of you to kind of explore that. I will say that we are gonna, in a couple slides, go over when Beta, Addie, and Annie are going to be having their workshops. That's a great opportunity to connect. But Tyler and Catherine, of course, this is their appearance today. So yeah, I will leave it to all of you.
I just threw my email. Feel free to just like reach out, I guess.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for such a wonderful panel session. I'm going to start screen sharing again, and I believe that our backup tech superhero, Sunny, is going to help us out with managing the screen right now. So thank you all so much. This was so enlightening and just so incredible to be a part of.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our guest speakers and to Carolyn for helping us go through that amazing panel discussion. So this wraps up our presentations for today. And I'll just wait for Carolyn to bring up the slides, and we will move on to talking a little bit about the SLIP program. So as an extension of the SDG Summit, we also encourage you all to continue practicing turning your ideas into action through the Sustainability Leadership Innovation Program, also known as SLIP. So SLIP is a development program offered to UCalgary students where you can get hands-on experience in proposing, designing, and bringing to life self-led sustainability research, as well as projects and initiatives that can be implemented actually right on campus or in our communities. So in addition to developing, strong leadership skills and connecting with other driven SLIP peers, there is also some financial support that is offered for your project, as well as access to training workshops and direct mentorship from faculty and community members. In terms of applications, they will open up in this coming week, and the link will be shared in the follow-up email at the end of this summit today. And lastly, we just wanted to thank all of our speakers, panelists, and organization representatives who have attended today, as well as to our graphic recorder, Sam, for documenting this amazing, amazing event. Additionally, a big thank you to the Office of Sustainability and the SU Quality Money Fund for their financial and logistical support for this event. And finally, a big thank you to the SDG Summit Committee for your ongoing work and commitment throughout the summer up till today to plan and coordinate this event. We will just quickly look at the schedule for the upcoming workshops that are in this coming week. So we have in-person workshops and a presentation on Monday, September 27th in the evening. And then we have a virtual workshop from 1 to 2 on Tuesday, as well as from 4 to 5. And then on Friday, we have our one more virtual presentation from 11 to 12, as well as the exciting in-person networking gala, which some of you hopefully have registered for, and we will all get a chance to meet you all in person, as well as meet our panelists and speakers for today. So that we're all looking forward to seeing you there. And we hope you all had a great time learning more about the SDGs and ways how we can turn these ideas that we all have into lasting actions. We look forward to seeing you in our workshops and presentation sessions throughout the week. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.